Not every cruise port is a dream destination. Some are crowded, overpriced, or just plain disappointing, and a few can even feel unsafe. In this video, we're counting down the 20 worst cruise ports around the world. From letdowns to full-on nightmares, you'll want to see which ones made the list. Stick around, because the top spots might surprise you. Let's dive in. Kicking off our list at number 20 is Amsterdam. Now hear me out before you throw tomatoes at the screen. Amsterdam is an absolutely amazing city, bikes everywhere, gorgeous canals, museums galore, and that cozy cafe culture. But as a cruise port, that's where things get tricky. Here's the problem: Amsterdam doesn't always want cruise ships there. Local protests against over-tourism have been making headlines, and sometimes ships aren't even allowed to dock on schedule. We've seen entire itineraries scrambled because protesters chained themselves to locks or the city suddenly shifted regulations. Imagine planning your dream trip only to find your ship floating offshore for hours, or worse, skipping another port entirely just to squeeze Amsterdam in. Not cool. And even if you do make it in, timing can be tough. Maybe you plan to see the Van Gogh Museum or Anne Frank House, but your time is cut short. For a city this rich in culture, rushing through feels frustrating. Our tip: fly into Amsterdam or extend your trip before or after your cruise. Experience the canals at night, visit the Heineken experience, rent a bike, and do it right. But as a cruise port stop, Amsterdam definitely earns its spot on this list. Number 19 is Los Angeles, California. Yep, our very own City of Angels makes the list. And if you've ever cruised from the Los Angeles port, you probably know why. Here's the deal. Los Angeles is an incredible city with Hollywood, Disneyland, Beverly Hills, beaches, and excellent tacos. But the cruise port in San Pedro? It's not glamorous. When you step off the ship, you're greeted not by palm trees or movie stars, but by cranes, cargo containers, and traffic. Lots and lots of traffic. And that's the other issue: distance. Want to see Hollywood? That's at least an hour in traffic. Disneyland? Even further. Your ship might only be in port for a day, and good luck squeezing in more than one big activity. Plus, everything is pricey. Parking, Ubers, attractions, you'll feel it in your wallet. So here's our advice. Don't treat Los Angeles as a day trip on your cruise. Instead, add a couple of days before or after. Hit the beach, tour the studios, catch a Lakers game, and then hop on your cruise refreshed. LA is a destination city, just not a great cruise stop. Coming in at number 18 is Ensenada, Mexico. If you've ever been on a quick 3-day Baja cruise from California, there's a good chance you've been here. And while Ensenada has its fans, many cruisers walk away a little disappointed. The main attraction? La Bavadora, the blowhole. It's a natural marine geyser that can shoot water up to 100 feet in the air when conditions are right. But if you go at the wrong time, it's more of a gentle puff of mist, and people end up calling it La Bavadora. To make it there, you'll walk past about a mile of vendors actively selling trinkets, ponchos, and drinks. It can feel exhausting. The port itself doesn't offer much within walking distance, so unless you're ready for a long taxi ride, your options are limited. But hey, it's not all bad. Ensenada has some of the best fish tacos in Mexico, and the wine region in Valle de Guadalupe is world-class. So our advice: skip the blowhole unless you're really into it, and instead book a wine tour or go on a food crawl. Trust us, your taste buds will thank you. At number 17, we've got Costa Maya, Mexico. Now, on paper, this port looks fantastic. A colorful cruise terminal with a giant free swimming pool, shops, bars, even a dolphin encounter. It sounds like a tropical paradise. And honestly, if you stay inside the terminal, it kind of is. But here's the catch. Most cruisers want beaches. And Costa Maya's beaches have a big problem: sargassum. That's the seaweed that piles up along the shore. And when it's bad, it's really bad. We're talking large accumulations of seaweed with a strong odor that makes swimming nearly impossible. Some days it's fine, other days it ruins the entire experience. Then there's the nickname locals and cruisers alike joke about Costa maybe. Why? Because this port gets canceled a lot due to high winds. The dock is exposed, and if conditions aren't perfect, your ship just won't risk it. Imagine looking forward to your Mexican beach day, only to find yourself sailing right past. Now, that doesn't mean skip Costa Maya entirely. If you do get off, consider an excursion to the Mayan ruins of Chacoben, or the stunning Bacalar Lagoon, known as the Lake of Seven Colors. Just don't bank on a perfect beach day here. Number 16. Progreso, Mexico. If you've ever cruised the Gulf of Mexico, there's a good chance you've been here. And let's just say Progreso isn't exactly Cozumel. Here's the thing. Progreso is one of the few Mexican ports that still feels real. Fewer tourist-focused shops and big chains, just an authentic Mexican town that can be both good and bad. For many cruisers expecting a picture-perfect port, it can be a shock. English isn't always spoken. Not everyone takes US dollars or credit cards, and the main pier itself is over 4 miles long. That means you'll need a shuttle just to get into town. Here's the silver lining. If you go with an open mind, Progreso can actually be refreshing. The local food is authentic and delicious. Hello, Yucatan tacos and ceviche. And there are incredible Mayan ruins and cenotes nearby, if you're willing to travel a bit. So Progreso might not wow you with glitz and glamour, but if you're up for a more real Mexico experience, this port could surprise you. Just don't expect Cozumel-level polish. If this video helped you chart smoother waters, hit like and subscribe. We've got plenty more cruise hacks coming your way. Number 15. Casablanca, Morocco. With a name like Casablanca, most of us picture romance, Humphrey Bogart. Here's looking at you, kid. But stepping off a cruise ship here? The reality is a little different. The truth is, Casablanca is more of a bustling, gritty city than a dreamy port of call. The main highlight is the Hassan II Mosque, an absolutely stunning architectural wonder right on the ocean. And yes, it's worth seeing. But beyond that, many cruisers report feeling underwhelmed. Most tours will also include a stop at a souk, or street market, which can be fun, but also chaotic and overwhelming if you're not into aggressive haggling. And what about Rick's Cafe? Sorry to disappoint, but the one in Casablanca is a modern tourist restaurant inspired by the movie. It's not the real deal. So while Casablanca isn't dangerous, it tends to leave cruisers feeling let down, especially if they arrived with sky-high expectations. If you go, set your sights on the mosque, soak up the culture, and manage your expectations. This isn't Hollywood, it's real-life Morocco. Number 14. Mahé, Seychelles. The Seychelles are marketed as pure paradise. White sand beaches, turquoise water, luxury everywhere. And while that's true in many ways, cruisers often leave Mahé scratching their heads. Why? One word: expensive. And I don't mean a little pricey. We're talking $15 for a beer, $300 to $400 a night for a basic hotel room, and tours that feel overpriced compared to similar islands in the region. Here's another catch. The beaches, while beautiful, aren't always mind-blowing compared to cheaper, easier-to-reach destinations in the Caribbean or even Hawaii. Add in the fact that the island is far off most cruise routes, and the payoff sometimes doesn't match the effort or cost. That being said, Mahé does have its charms. Victoria, the capital, is one of the smallest in the world, and the colorful markets are fun to explore. And yes, those iconic boulder-strewn beaches are stunning. But if you're expecting the best island in the world, you might leave feeling like you overpaid for average. Lucky number 13 is Arica, Chile. This port sits up in the far north of the country, known as the City of Eternal Spring because of its sunny weather. Sounds nice, right? So why is it on the list? The big issue is, there's just not much to do. If you happen to visit during the Sun Festival, you'll catch colorful parades, music, and dancing, and it's fantastic. But for the other 51 weeks of the year, cruisers often describe Arica as kind of bland. There are a few small attractions, such as a small Christ the Redeemer statue, a church associated with Eiffel's workshop, and some ancient petroglyphs, but most of these are either underwhelming or located way outside of town. To make things worse, the heat can be brutal, making sightseeing less than enjoyable. That said, Arica isn't a bad stop if you're looking for a laid-back day. You can stroll along the beach promenade, grab some fresh seafood, or just soak up the sunshine. But compared to Chile's more famous ports like Valparaiso, Arica feels like a missed opportunity. Number 12. Recife, Brazil. Recife is often called the Venice of Brazil because of its canals and bridges, but for cruisers, that nickname doesn't always match the reality. When you step off the ship, you're not exactly greeted with a postcard scene. Instead, the port is industrial, think cargo ships, tankers, and warehouses. It is not ideal for exploring on foot directly from the port. Now, to be fair, Recife has some cultural gems. There's the UNESCO-listed town of Olinda nearby, with its colorful colonial houses and cobblestone streets. If you take a tour there, you'll probably enjoy it. But if you don't have an excursion planned, Recife can feel a bit rough around the edges. Safety concerns also pop up in many reviews, with cruisers advised not to wander too far on their own. So, while Recife isn't terrible if you plan ahead, it's not the kind of port that makes for a carefree day. Without an excursion, you're likely to end up back on the ship earlier than you hoped. Number 11. Tahiti, Papeete. The word Tahiti probably makes you think of paradise, crystal-clear lagoons, lush mountains, and overwater bungalows. But here's the surprise. Papeete, the capital, is more of a busy city than a tropical escape. For many cruisers, that contrast creates a serious case of expectation versus reality. When you dock in Papeete, you'll find traffic, noise, and a lot of concrete. Yes, There are markets, statues, and even some waterfalls if you go with a guide, but it doesn't match the dreamy image of French Polynesia that most travelers have in mind. And the snorkeling, let's just say it's not nearly as good as nearby Mora or Bora Bora. That said, it's not a total loss. If you approach Papeete as a cultural stop rather than a beach destination, you might enjoy the experience. You'll find authentic Polynesian food, vibrant street markets, and a glimpse of everyday island life. But if you've spent years dreaming about Tahiti, stepping off the ship here can feel a little underwhelming. Number 10. Lombok, Indonesia. Lombok is marketed as Bali's quieter, more authentic neighbor, but for many cruisers, the reality doesn't quite live up to the hype. The journey usually starts with a long, bumpy ride through crowded, dusty streets, past piles of trash that can be a shock for first-time visitors expecting paradise. When you finally reach the beaches or the Gili Islands, the disappointment can continue. The shorelines often have visible litter, and the water can look murky. Some snorkelers report seeing a few fish, but no vibrant coral reefs. And while there are moments of beauty like sunsets on the smaller islands, the overall impression tends to be one of missed potential. Safety and hygiene are other concerns. Travelers have mentioned cutting themselves on sharp debris or running into less than ideal sanitary conditions. Add in the heavy traffic and occasional pushy sales tactics, and Lombok doesn't always deliver the idyllic island escape people expect. Still, if you go with low expectations and a sense of adventure, you might appreciate Lombok's raw authenticity. But if you're chasing the picture-perfect tropical dream, you'll find better options elsewhere in Indonesia. Number 9. Freeport, Bahamas. Freeport is one of those ports that divides cruisers right down the middle. On one hand, it's in the Bahamas. So yes, there are beautiful beaches nearby. On the other hand, the actual port area itself feels, well, pretty bleak. Imagine stepping off the ship into what looks like a giant industrial parking lot, with shipping containers and warehouses instead of palm trees and pastel houses. That first impression turns a lot of people off, and it doesn't get much better if you decide to just hang around the terminal. There's not much to do without hopping in a taxi or booking an excursion, and aggressive vendors have been known to hassle visitors, which can make the experience more stressful than relaxing. But here's the twist. Once you get out of the port and onto a proper beach, Freeport can be amazing. The sand is just as white, and the water just as turquoise as Nassau or any of the private islands. The key is that you need a plan. Don't wing it here. Book a beach day at a resort, take a short tour, or grab a cab to one of the local beaches. Do that, and Freeport goes from, "Why did we stop here?" to, "That wasn't so bad after all." Number 8. Nassau, Bahamas. Nassau is one of the most visited cruise ports in the world, but it's also one of the most complained about. The reason? It's become a victim of its own popularity. On a busy day, you might see half a dozen megaships in port, which means tens of thousands of tourists flooding into the same small area. That makes Nassau feel chaotic, crowded, and not exactly relaxing. Another big turnoff is the aggressive sales culture. The second you step outside the port, you're approached by people selling tours, hair braiding, trinkets, and sometimes things you definitely don't want. It can be overwhelming, especially if all you wanted was a peaceful stroll. Then there's Junkanoo Beach, the closest free beach to the port. It sounds convenient, but in reality, it's often overcrowded, a little dirty, and full of vendors. Many cruisers end up regretting the visit. But Nassau isn't all bad. If you plan ahead, you can find some real gems: the Queen's Staircase, Fort Fincastle, John Watling's Distillery, or a day pass at a private resort. Atlantis is also a draw, though pricey. Bottom line, Nassau rewards planners. Show up without a plan, and you might hate it. Number 7. Punta Cana, Dominican Republic. Punta Cana is famous for its all-inclusive resorts, but as a cruise stop, it's not nearly as glamorous. The biggest issue is location. The cruise port isn't close to much. If you want those postcard-perfect beaches or activities, you'll need a long bus ride, often more than an hour each way. That alone can eat up most of your limited port time. Safety is another concern. Many cruisers report feeling uneasy if they stray away from organized tours. Travel advisories recommend exercising caution and sticking to organized excursions, which takes away the freedom many travelers enjoy. Now, to be fair, if you book the right excursion, Punta Cana can still be fun. Zip lining, catamaran rides, or simply spending the day at an all-inclusive resort can be great experiences. The beaches truly are stunning once you get there. But if you're stepping off the ship expecting to just walk a few minutes and find paradise, you're going to be disappointed. Punta Cana shines for longer stays, where you can settle into a resort and relax. As a quick stop on a cruise, it's more hassle than it's worth. Number 6. La Romana, Dominican Republic. La Romana is another Dominican port that often leaves cruisers underwhelmed, but here the complaints are a little more serious. The port itself is industrial, which means there's nothing within walking distance, no charming town square, no easy beach access. If you want to see anything worthwhile, you have to book an excursion. And then there's the safety factor. Travelers report everything from aggressive taxi drivers to scams at ATMs. Some excursions even come with police escorts, which doesn't exactly make visitors feel at ease. Official travel advisories note higher crime levels in parts of the Dominican Republic, so extra caution is recommended in and around La Romana. Of course, there are still things to do if you plan properly. Excursions to Altos de Chavon, a replica Mediterranean village overlooking the Chavon River, can be interesting. There are also beaches and resorts nearby, but almost all of these require time, money, and transportation. So the bottom line with La Romana is this: unless you're prepared to book something organized, you'll likely step off the ship, look around, and decide to get right back on. Number 5. Montego Bay, Jamaica. Montego Bay is one of Jamaica's most famous names, but cruisers often walk away with mixed feelings. The beaches are undeniably beautiful, and places like Dunn's River Falls near Ocho Rios are incredible. But the port experience itself, that's where the problems come in. The first issue is safety. Montego Bay has a reputation for aggressive vendors and repeated unsolicited offers. Many cruisers describe being hassled the second they leave the secure port area, and it can quickly turn from annoying to downright uncomfortable. Add in chaotic traffic and sometimes reckless drivers, and exploring on your own doesn't feel like a great idea. Another common complaint is that there just aren't many attractions close to the port. Resorts are fine if you want to spend the day in one, but if you're hoping to explore freely, it's tough. Many seasoned travelers say they'd rather fly to Jamaica for a resort stay than visit by cruise ship. To be fair, the culture, music, and food in Jamaica are unforgettable, but unless you're with a guided excursion, Montego Bay often leaves cruisers wishing their ship had docked somewhere else. Number 4. Falmouth, Jamaica. Falmouth was supposed to be Jamaica's shining jewel of cruise tourism, but unfortunately, it hasn't lived up to that promise. On paper, the port looks great, a modern terminal with shops, bars, and restaurants. But once you step outside those gates, the problems begin. Many cruisers report aggressive panhandling, constant offers of drugs, and in some cases, even feeling threatened when they say no. Safety is a big concern here, especially for LGBTQ+ travelers, who often describe discrimination or harassment. Add to that Jamaica's overall reputation for high crime rates, and it's no wonder people feel uneasy. What makes it especially frustrating is that Jamaica is such a beautiful country, full of music, food, and warm people, but Falmouth just doesn't showcase that side. Unless you're on a well-organized excursion, your experience is more likely to be stressful than enjoyable. The reality is, Falmouth has potential, but right now it leaves too many cruisers disappointed, or worse, nervous about their safety. Number 3. Belize City, Belize. We're getting into the final 3, and trust us, these are the worst of the worst, and Belize City has earned its spot for a reason. If you've cruised the Caribbean, chances are you've heard the warnings. Don't just walk off the ship without a plan. Right away, there are issues. Ships can't dock directly, so you need to take a tender, the small boats that ferry you back and forth. The ride is often long, bumpy, and uncomfortable. By the time you arrive, you're already tired. And then comes the real challenge, the vendors. The second you step ashore, you're bombarded with offers for tours, souvenirs, and sometimes inappropriate or unlicensed offers. For many people, it's overwhelming. The city itself doesn't help much. It feels run down, with little to see in the immediate area. The real gems of Belize Mayan ruins, cave tubing, the barrier reef are fantastic, but they're all at least an hour away. That means unless you've booked a solid excursion, you'll probably be disappointed. So while Belize has some world-class attractions, the port experience itself often leaves cruisers frustrated. Plan right, and it can be amazing. But wing it, and you'll wish you stayed on the ship. Taking the number 2 spot is Fortaleza, Brazil, which many experienced cruisers rate poorly. The city has a reputation for safety concerns, with high crime rates in areas tourists are strongly advised to avoid. For cruisers, that alone is unnerving. Add to that the fact that there just isn't much to see near the port, and you end up with a stop that feels like a waste of time. Even the popular local beaches are most active later in the day because of the heat, which is not ideal for short port calls. For cruise passengers with only a few hours, that makes them almost useless. Many visitors describe the city tour as underwhelming, with very few highlights. When you factor in the risks and the lack of attractions, Fortaleza is the kind of port that makes people question why cruise lines even bother including it. The number 1 worst cruise port in the world, Luanda, Angola. This isn't just a case of underwhelming attractions or pushy vendors. We're talking about serious safety concerns that have left cruisers shaken. When ships dock here, passengers on official excursions have reported traveling with armed police escorts. That alone should tell you everything. Travelers have reported feeling like they were in danger the entire time, with stories of corruption, chaos, and a general sense that tourists weren't welcome. The port area itself is not set up for tourism. There's very little to see, very little infrastructure, and a heavy atmosphere of tension. For many, it felt less like a cultural experience and more like something to be endured. What makes Luanda stand out, unfortunately, is that it is not just disappointing, it can feel intimidating. And when you're paying for a vacation, that's the last thing you want. So while every port has its pros and cons, Luanda sits firmly at the top of the do not recommend list for cruisers worldwide. And that is our countdown of the 20 worst cruise ports. If you made it all the way to the end, thank you. You are officially part of our cruise crew. Remember, even a bad day on a cruise still beats a good day at the office, right? If you enjoyed this video, don't sail away just yet. We've got plenty more cruise tips, stories, and countdowns waiting for you. Check out our other videos, hit subscribe, and let's keep cruising together. See you on board.